Hello, everyone. Welcome back to A Real Discussion. I am Ebony.
And I'm Paris.
This is the podcast with no name, and today we are reading, or not really, well, I guess reading, or reviewing. That's a better one. We've already read
Mm.
it. I've read this book over 40 times. I read it once a month. There are three of them. Who Moved My Cheese? I Move My Cheese, which is my favorite book. It was written by a different author. And then Out of the Maze, which is the third one, and it was written by this author, Who Moved My Cheese. So today we're going to do a deep dive. We're going to go page by page and talk about it. It'll probably be about probably 2 or 3 videos because we want to
Mm.
do a serious deep dive. So each book will have about 2 or 3 videos, and I will continuously, yearly, I should say, annually, I'll do a deep dive, although I'll probably also do like overviews each month as well. So let's get started. You remember this book, P?
Mostly, mostly, it's been a while since I read it, and I hadn't had a chance to review it very recently.
Okay, so the book starts off with like a high school reunion. Like the first time I read the book, I read this part, but then every other time I just skip this. So it's about like some schools from high school, I mean some friends from high school. They meet up and they start discussing their lives, and one friend is like, "Are you happy with your life?" And the majority of them are like, "Heck no, like who's happy? That's not a thing."
Oh wow.
So he goes through and was like, "Well, let me tell you a story, and maybe this will put some things in perspective." And then that's when it goes to Who Moved My Cheese, the story.
Mm.
So I won't read it word for word, but I'll read it like in context. Okay. So once upon a time, there was a maze, of course, and there were two people who lived, two different types of characters who lived in the maze. And they ran through the maze looking for cheese to nourish them and make them happy. Two of them were mice, and two of them were little people. The mice name was Sniff and Scurry, and the little people name were Hem and Haw. And they lived in this maze. And so every day they woke up, um, they got up, put on their, got dressed and went searching for cheese in this maze. And they all had, of course, their own special cheese that they like, right?
Mhm.
The mice, it says the mice, Sniff and Scary, possessing simple brains and good instincts, search for the hard nibbling cheese they like, as mice often do. The two little people, Him and Haw, use their complex brains filled with many beliefs and emotions to search for a very different kind of cheese with a capital Chi, which they believe would make them very happy and successful. So it starts
Mm.
off setting you up like, to me, it's a setup. It's like, oh, so both the mice and the little people need this to be happy. So they need something outside of themselves to be happy. So
Mm.
in my mind, it already starts as a setup.
I can understand that. I think when you read that, you go, "Hey, one is a very complex, person, and one is very simple." So you go, "Oh, well, of course, I want to be in the group with the complex, uh, people who aren't just like every day I'm just looking for cheese, but they're like I'm looking for the cheese, right?"
Right. But is it in looking for, because when I think about it, it's like, oh, they talk about the good brains, I mean the brains and the good instincts, and they just search for the hard nibbling cheese, which of course would be the easiest cheese to find,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which make it more abundant, as opposed to like what you just said, I'm looking for a particular type of cheese, the cheese with a capital C on it. That's a particular type of cheese, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really a generic experience.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it harder for you to obtain when you're looking for only this, when there are other options too, right? So on the flip side of that, it's
Exactly.
like knowing what you want, but also knowing what you want means that all there's more of what you don't want that you would have to avoid. So
Right.
so even with the complexity, you're making what you say you require, you're making it hard to acquire it.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. To
Okay.
me, it kind of breaks down to that whole thing of like being purposeful and then being like, oh, I have a purpose.
Right. Explain.
Like the mice are purposeful in their search because they're going out and they're searching for cheese because you need to eat. And the other one was like, no, I'm looking for the cheese. So it's like, unless I find this cheese, all the other ones is like, it's okay. But I'm looking for the cheese. Like where's the Gouda? Where's the Havarti? Like, like all the other ones, like, okay, okay. But when I really get that cheese, they like, yeah. So it's like what you're saying of like, and again, we've discussed it so many times of getting stuck in like, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? Instead of like living in the moment and let everything be purposeful.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. So it says, um, as different as the mice and the little people were, they shared something in common. Every morning they put on their jogging suits and running shoes, left their little homes, and raced out in the maze for their favorite cheese. The maze was a labyrinth full of corridors and chambers, some containing delicious cheese, but there were also dark corners and blind alleys leading nowhere. It was an easy place for anyone to get lost. Like life, like living. It's easy to get lost, especially when in your mind you have an idea of the cheese you want, right? And it's out and about in this very dark world with dark corners, blind alleys, lead nowhere. Anyone can get lost. It's like searching for a particular type of cheese, um, and not being okay with just satisfying the biological need, or again back to making it already a hard predicament, is because
Mhm.
the world is hard. You're searching for a particular type of cheese, but you don't know if the other options that are being offered to you would sustain you or satisfy your need. You just want what you want, which again, that tunnel vision, may make things very complicated, because sometimes you think you're pursuing what you want in direct opposition to what you need. And so I just think that this is very interesting, because I think life, if you align with source, gives you what you need and not necessarily what you want. So this is a topic of like, one, I will search the world for what it is that I want and not necessarily what it is that I need.
Okay.
I mean, because I just think about this, like, it just in our society, it's like, oh, you ask little kids like, what is it that you want to be when you grow up? And it's like, I always thought that question was strange, because how can you know what you want to be before you do it? It's strange. It's like, I've
Mhm.
never tried that thing. I saw it on TV, or I saw someone else do it, and I thought it was so cool. And this is what I'm gonna spend my life doing. And as we know, a lot of people go to school, they get these degrees, they get into that career, and then they hate it. So it's like, it's that
Yeah.
mindset of like, again, you like, this is my purpose, this is my purpose, this is what I want, but you're not allowing enough room for source, God, Allah, Jehovah, whatever it is that you believe in. You're not allowing enough space for faith if you have the blinders on, only pursuing what it is that you want. Because when you
Mm.
get what you want, or once you get what you want, it may not be what you need.
Very true.
And in the book, we see that it kind of remind me of like the poison poppies, because it's like, getting what you want, does that make you lazy? Because as you see, they found, the book will go on and they talk about them finding cheese, and what do they do once you get what you want? And is what you want what you need? Okay, let me keep going.
Yeah.
You have
Okay.
anything? You have
Yeah.
anything to say? Sorry, I love this book. It's so, every time I read it, it always opens new lines of thoughts and helps me consider things. And this is why I read it so much. Okay. So it say, the mice sniff and scare used their simple trial and error method of finding cheese. They ran down one corridor. If it proved, corridor, if it proved that it's empty, they turn around, ran down another. They remember which ones had no cheese and went in new directions. Sniff would smell out the general direction of the cheese using his great nose, and Scary would race ahead. They got lost, as you might expect, went in the wrong direction, bumped into walls, but after a while, they found their way. Like the mice, the two little people, him and Hall, also use their abilities to think and learn from past experiences. However, the little people relied on their complex brains to develop more sophisticated methods of finding cheese. So let's talk about that before we go into
Okay.
it. Okay.
Okay.
You have any thoughts on that?
Not particularly yet. Again, I feel like it's still a setup to be like, hey, I want to be in this group versus this group.
Right. But when you think about it, it's like the trial and error method. It's like who uses the trial and error method to as opposed to who use their complex brains to develop more sophisticated methods of findings.
Mm-hmm.
So let's think about this in context of society. So I always think about this in context of society. So it's like one is using trial and error method.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about all of the entrepreneurs of the world, or the scientists, or the forward thinking people, or the thought leaders, I believe they are using the trial and error method, right?
Okay.
And I believe those of us who have not aligned with faith use their complex brains to develop more sophisticated methods. So like
Mm-hmm.
if my goal is to light the world, right? I may
Uh-huh.
use trial and error methods to figure out how to light the world. But if my method is like the little people, then I'll go, my method is to light the world using a light bulb. And
Mm-hmm.
I will try many different ways to light this light bulb or get this light bulb to work, when the
Okay.
equation could not even include a light bulb. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I
Right.
may get light without a light bulb. So I'm willing and open to do trial and error method for anything that may work, right? But on the
Mm-hmm.
other side of this, it's like this is what I think will work. These ingredients. So I may switch up a whole bunch of things, but I'm going to ultimately use this. Like for instance, I may go, I don't know what it is I want to do for a career, and I may go into a whole bunch of different industries throughout my career to figure out what it is that I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because I'm focusing on what it is that I want to do. Another person may be focusing on the means of a career, which would be I want to make enough money to do whatever it is that I want to do, right?
Yeah.
So they're to them, the equation is the money, right? So they
Uh-huh.
may do anything to get the money. They find more sophisticated methods of getting the money. And some of them are unethical, some of them are immoral, some of them are just unprofessional, some of them hurt other people. When we look at the society that we live in, capitalism, in my opinion, is one of those more sophisticated methods of finding cheese, finding money,
Mm-hmm.
is because
I was also,
now,
oh, sorry,
mhm,
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was also thinking too of like, if you've read it a few times, you can also think about those who immediately spring into action and those who sit and are the planners, right? And so who are slow to action. So I also think too, it's like it kind of sets you up there as well of being like, okay, these are the people who are like, okay, I'm gonna go out and I'm heading out into, the maze or whatever to do something. Like I know I want to get here, but I'm gonna go and spring into action and eventually I'll get there. And then there's the people who go like, okay, well, I know it's a maze and I know it's this and that, whatever. So let me sit down and plan. And I'm going to have like a little bit of chalk. And so I'm going to mark this wall. And if this wall doesn't work, when I go back, I'll scratch it out and blah, blah, blah. And so they're a little bit slower to take action. And maybe also you, again, like it sets you up to be like, okay, well, if I'm very complex in my thinking or whatever, right? I'm going to find the keys. And I will eventually get there, right? And you would think like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to find the keys faster to them because I'm just not out here just running around trying to find it, and getting lost. I'm very methodical in how I'm going to get there, right? And I'll get there. And you would think like, I'm going to get there faster, but I'm like, maybe you won't. And the thing is that when later in the book, when you read it, is that you would think that they get there faster, but a couple of times they get there and the mice are already there.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. So again, I agree too. It's like it's beginning to think of setting up going, yeah, like I'm a complex person. I'm not just a mouse. Like, yeah, I'm the little people. Like I'm thinking, I'm methodical in what I'm doing. Um, and so like what you're explaining too, it's a setup to be like, yeah, I'm gonna be here and I have to be in this category when really it's like, no, it could be it's so much simpler than you think. But anyway, go on.
Yes, because I think ultimately this book is about those who have faith and those who are the faithless. And it's like,
Mm,
if you have faith, you can just align with whatever you believe in and just be in your instinct. And they talk about
mm,
the mice having simple brains and good instincts because they are aligned with nature, they align with source, they align with whatever is bigger, which tells them go this way, go that way, go this way. And it gives them the energy to keep moving because it's not like all of the weight of what happens is my responsibility.
mm-hmm.
It's more so like it's out there. So I'm just going to be guided to where it is, as opposed to it's out there. And if I don't find it, then I die.
Yeah. So it's
Right.
like faith versus pessimism.
Or faith versus the faithless. Because
Yeah.
obviously, when you say instincts, that means you're aligning with whatever created you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Animals don't think about themselves in like, I'm a whole conscious being in that way. They're just tied to what is considered like the circle of life. But
Right.
with being human and having all of these complex beliefs, and I see myself and I'm conscious, you have the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to separate yourself from nature. So
Mm-hmm.
in our mind, human beings, not even mammals, we're not even nature, we're something different. We live in houses, we wear clothes, we think, we see ourselves, we're different, when
Mm-hmm.
really it's like we're the same. And we do have the faculties to do these things, but without learning to be in control of over them. Are they hurting you or are they helping you? And we see in this book, it's like with these little people, it's hurting them
Mm-hmm.
because you have all of these beliefs and you're not having faith that wherever you're going is for the best in you or the best in whatever designed us, right? It's more
Mm-hmm.
so like, I have these dreams, these goals, and I want to get there, and it's up to me to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just keep reading because we're
Okay.
talking ahead. Okay. So it says sometimes they did well, but other times their pure, powerful human beliefs and emotions took over and clouded the way that they looked at things. Kind of what I'm saying. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't have faith and practice, control and faith at the same time. It's like either I'm relinquishing control and having faith, or it's up to me and I don't believe that I'll get it. And that's ultimately what they're going through. So it's like, nevertheless, Sniff and Scary, him and Hall all discovered in their own way what they were looking for. They each found their own cheese one day at in one of the corridors, cheese station C. So every morning after that, the mice and the little people dressed in their morning gear and headed over to cheese station C. It wasn't long before they established their own routine. Sniff and Scary continued to wake up early every day and race through the maze, always following the same route. When they arrived at their destination, the mice took off their running shoes, tied them together, and hung them around their necks so they can get to them quickly whenever they needed them again. And then they enjoyed the cheese. In the beginning, him and Hall also raced towards Cheese Station every morning to enjoy the tasty new morsels that awaited them. But after a while, a different routine set in for the little people. Him and Hall awoke each day a little later, dressed a little slower, and walked to Cheese Station C. After all, they knew what the cheese was and how to get it. So, this is what I'm talking about. I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it yesterday. I think I was watching like Recess. I was watching something, one of the kids' movies, and the alarm
Mm-hmm.
went off and the kid just jumped out of the bed. They was like, yeah, he just jumped out of the bed, threw the covers, jumped up. I was like, oh, like I love when I have days like that where I have just such good things going on today that my alarm go off and I'm like, and I just hop out of
Mm-hmm.
the bed. But most days it's not like that, right?
Yeah.
And then I started thinking like, what is really happening? Like what, why? Because every morning when you open your eyes, it's a gift. It's like a new
Mm-hmm.
day to, in this context, get new cheese, right? So it's like, why aren't you happy about that? Why are you just like, nah, it's there. It'll be there when it gets there. How
Mm-hmm.
come as human beings we reach a point where it's like we get used to life, we get sick of life. It's just like, oh, I'm going through the motions. Here we go again. I'm waking up again. I'm going to the, cheese station, see again. And
Mm-hmm.
this to me happens when you set your goal on that particular thing. Because once
Mm-hmm.
you get it, you're no longer excited about it anymore. You have to make a new goal. If the goal is the cheese, once you get the cheese, you're happy for a second, but then it becomes normalized. It's regular now. You have it, right? And so you
Mm-hmm.
have to make a new goal. If you don't make a new goal, then you stay complacent, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you, to me, deteriorate. You get worse. Your mind get worse. Your actions become worse. All these things start to deteriorate. So, is it better to have some sort of like tangible? I want money, right? I'm in
Mm-hmm.
this maze. I wake up every day. I get out of bed. I go to work for money. Okay, well, you get your money every week or every 2 weeks. What does that do for your enjoyment? What does it do for the quality of your life when you know when the cheese is coming? You don't
Mm-hmm.
jump out of bed
Mm-hmm.
because your prize is
True.
the cheese. Now, if my prize was like, if my, what I set my goal on was learning, now, when my alarm go off every morning, I could jump out of bed because although I'm going to work, I could learn something new today. If
Yeah.
it's to socialize, if it's to grow and develop my own skill set, if it's to serve the world or help a person, when my alarm go off, I could just pull the sheets back and it's a new day. It's like, yes, but if it's cheese, if it's money, then you dread it.
I was also thinking too, like my first thought was in complacency, also just thinking that something's gonna always be there. So you're like, hey, I have achieved this. And so now this is always going to be what it is. So now I'm slow to move, whatever. And truthfully, it's like a laziness or entitlement or, something along that nature of being like, I don't need to run and get up fast because it's going to be there. And so you expect whatever you've done or you've achieved, if you're accomplished, like, okay, well, I'm done now. And go, well, no. And as you get along further in the book, you realize that no, you're not done. You're supposed to constantly be in motion to look forward, to be looking to move forward to get to, the next thing. But it's also in what you're saying too. It's like, okay, if my goal is the money, well, now, you say you're a certain type of person, go, well, I've never made this amount of money. So you may go to a place and go, man, I finally made this amount of money. I'm going to stay here all the time. And you go, hey, you can move up. Or there's other jobs, there's other options. Maybe there's a place with a little more passion. Maybe you have a great idea that you could start your business and you could, be making money doing what you love. But you go, well, I'm making this amount of money and I'm okay. Like I'm doing well, like I'm okay. So why can't I just keep doing this and making this amount of money because my goal was always the money and to be stable. And so I am stable. So why can't I just stay here, maybe where I'm not necessarily fulfilled or happy? I'm slow to get up in the morning, but I know that in the end, I'm going to be okay, right? Because I expect to wake up and go to the place and there's going to be the cheese. Where? So I agree. I think they're starting to move into the place of complacency. And I think depending on like when you read in your experience and what part you're in your life, like you're saying, it's like, hey, having more faith and being more of like, hey, this is my purpose, or also being like, hey, now that you got to a plate, now that you found the cheese, like, are you complacent and being like, hey, it's just always going to be there. So I don't need anything more.
Right. Right. Especially if you think you've met your needs. But sometimes it's like,
Mhm.
okay, you are exchanging the money. It comes at the opportunity cost of you being your best self. So yeah, I can make $100,000 a year, but I can go over to this job, serve people, make $75,000 a year, and grow into my best self. And my overall quality of life improves. I have work-life balance. I can spend more time outside of work. There's so many other perks that you're exchanging for money. But if cheese is your goal, you could sit in misery, never growing, just eating cheese, getting lazy your whole life. And here's the thing, this whole book is about change. And the one
Mhm.
constant in life is change. And as an entrepreneur, I know businesses change. So although
Mhm.
people feel like, oh, I work for these big companies, or I work for these small companies, my job is safe, this is stable, it's secure. Nothing. It is nothing in this world that is stable and secure. And as an entrepreneur, anything can change. Anything can change. That
Mhm.
building could catch fire. It could be bought out, it can merge, the person can decide to sell it, they can decide to lay you off, anything can happen. So you're not necessarily secure. So it talks about in the book basing your future on present day cheese. Is that really logical? It's like we think
Right.
I keep seeing all of these shows where it's like a person and where a lot of people are getting laid off, but shows where a person goes into the office and the manager fires them and they're like, you're fired or you're laid off, and they're like, well, I just bought a house. And to me, and this may be controversial, but they got me like that with a student loan. And so I learned my lesson from a student loan, and I never understood, like, how could you put yourself in a 30-year mortgage and you don't know what the next 30 years will be like? Again,
Mhm.
it's making future plans on your present, you know, like on your present, or for the present, or in the present for future. And
Mhm.
you don't know if this is going to last the next 30 years, right? So in a sense, it's like you can stay in the present moment and handle what you can do now, right? and
Yeah.
and look at it from the spot of what can I afford now, as opposed to what can I use now that can offer me more over an exterior extended period of time. So it's like I could live in an apartment, and if I lose my job, it's easy for me to take care of this apartment, like to get the rent. Or I could tie myself in a 30-year mortgage and then the company goes under and now I'm scrambling. I can't just take any job to pay my rent. I need a certain amount of money to sustain my house, my lifestyle. Where it's like
Yeah.
to me, to sustain something means that you have it in the present. It can't be future resources to cover the present.
Right. But also I think too is in the mindset of that, like you can buy a house, but also if you can't afford it, you can sell it. And I think sometimes people forget that, like, hey, if that doesn't work, you can leave that situation and move on. You don't have to stay here.
Well, it
So like
depends. Selling it not easy. Depends where
it
you at.
some it does. That's true. It depends on what you at, but also it also goes to the fact that like it doesn't have to be this forever. And again, like it's in the book, it doesn't have to be this forever. So it doesn't have to be like, oh well, I lost my job and I'm supposed to be in this house for the next 30 years. It's like, well, I lost my job. I can't afford this house. Let me sell this house. I lost my job. I can't afford this car. Let me get back this car. And people don't necessarily think that way. They're like, I have this and I need to sustain this. And again, the one constant in life is change. Like you're saying, I personally know people who have worked at places for 10, 13, 15 years, and then all of a sudden they're laid off. They get a, something goes, hey, we're going to lay you off, whatever. And they're like, well, I've been doing this for 13 years. Like, what am I going to do? I know one person who's like, well, I have a little bit of money. I'm going to enjoy my little bit of free time, um, finding new hobbies, and I'm doing this and that, whatever. And then when time comes, I'll look for something else. And then I know another person who was like, well, I got a severance pay and I'm going to do that. But like, man, what am I going to do? And I had this type of job and I don't want to do that anymore. And I don't know what I'm going to do. And I can't take this type of job because I can't work in a place lower than what I was saying. That would be embarrassing and this and that, whatever. And now, like, instead of like having a little bit of time, like you're stressed during the time that you were like, hey, I'm going to take a little bit of time off and, use this little bit of severance pay to, enjoy my time and then I'll go back to work. But they can't, and like they say they want change, but they're not willing to accept something different. They're still looking to sustain what they have. And it's like, just do something different. And it took years for them to actually get in their mind that they could do something different. And they struggled for many years of like trying to make the little bit of money they had stretch or not having any money or doing a little bit of this and that because they kind of hemmed and hawed about what to do next because I'm so used to my cheese being here and I keep going back to the same place looking for the cheese, but it's not there. So like, what am I doing? But also I saw an excellent example very recently of a person who made very good money, but the job required a lot of their time. And so they recently decided, well, hey, I would really appreciate more time to myself because time is the one currency you never get back. You can't return it for anything. So this person changed their position in the company and took a $70,000 pay cut. But they're just like, it is what it is. Because now I get 4 days off in a week. I actually have time to pursue my passions, time to travel, time to build new hobbies, time to actually relax and chill, maybe time to like, actually work out like I wanted to. So, yeah, so it's again, like you said, when that type of money, who in our thinking right now, even when I said it, you were like, woo, that's the whole point. It's the complacency. It's like, when would I ever take that type of pay cut and think like, hey, I'm going to sustain what I have? And you go, hey, I can sustain it, but also I don't have to sustain this. I can change to something else. And so because I'm going to make this change, everything else in my life will change too. And it's not going to kill me.
Right. As we talk, I love the mind. I love digging in emotions. I read like a lot of philosophy and like emotional based, like cognitive stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to figure, I'm like, if you think about a baby in the womb, I've never been, I did not carry any babies. So, but when you think about a baby in the womb, it's like the baby don't stay from the moment it gets arms, legs, and mobility. Let's just say mobility. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
stay in the same spot. It's like moving. I be seeing pictures and videos of the baby like, get me out of here. So it's like, and then when you think about like babies, you set them down on their back and you may not even be around them, but they like kicking, grabbing their feet, doing all, and you like, okay. They
Mm-hmm.
start to become more mobile and they're running, they're ripping and running. They're changing, growing all the time. They're doing all types of stuff. And it's very interesting that you go from a child who's consistently, eagerly looking for change every couple of minutes to a grown up who is resistant of change, will go to
Mm-hmm.
the outer space, okay? Will go deep into the ocean, do anything to avoid changing, growing, doing the work. I just find that so fascinating. Like, what happens between you being a being who loves change, who seeks change, who enjoys it, who thrives from change, to now, like, I don't want to change. I want to stay here for 13 years. I don't want to do this. I like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, so I eat them every single day for lunch. Like, That is wow to me. It's just so wow. And I do a lot of reading. And again, it's just one of those things that I'm really trying to understand, because once I understand like what is happening, what causes a person from going from being eager to life to like dreading life, what stops a person from opening up to change or making them not want to change anymore. I feel like the person who knows that can change the world. And it's like I'm constantly seeking, because it just doesn't make it's so wow to me. It makes
Mm-hmm.
no sense. It's like my mind goes, well, kids are wow. It makes me think of wild thornberries. It's like kids are wow.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's in maintaining your wildness is how you can deal with change. The more domesticated you are, and we talk a lot about domestication, the more
Mm-hmm.
domesticated you are, the more you don't want things to change, the more you fear change. But like the process of going from wild to domestication, it's just I love it. It's like it's like it
Mm-hmm.
got me all, because it's like I'm a grown up, but I'm still very much wow. Everybody who knows me, they'll go, "Oh, she's wow. She's like a kid." It doesn't mean I'm immature, but it
Mm-hmm.
means like I'm going to show up authentic, even though I know society may frown upon that, which would be considered wow. They're like, "Oh, wow, she's not following the etiquette," and I'm like, who laid those rules? I didn't agree to those. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just having a good time. So I just think that that's the most intriguing thing about this is, why do we resist change?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's too is like what you're saying is finding that balance of like absolutely you can be domesticated and finding what's comfortable. A peanut butter jelly sandwich is what hits for you, that's fine. But also like, are you gonna eat it 3 times a day, or is it just what you have for lunch? You know what I'm saying? So it's finding that thing in the middle of like also being like, I'm also willing to expand and try new things. I can find what's comfortable. Like the mice, every day they go out and they search and they're changing, but they're still looking for the cheese because that's what they like. It's not about like not pursuing what you like and being what you like. It's about having a growth mindset and being able to accept change and to continue to move on and not be stuck and complacent in the place that you are. That you can continue to move forward as life change as you get older and move in the direction that you need to with what you've learned and what abilities that you do have, but you don't have to stay in where you are, but you can still enjoy what you enjoy, right? So absolutely. And I think as adults, that's what we have to learn is you can enjoy what you can enjoy. You can enjoy your domestication, but be in a growth change mindset of being like, okay, well, I'm going to move here and I'm going to move there. If this doesn't serve me, if this doesn't work, then that's fine. I can continue to move on into the next path that I have to. And not only that, I can get up and do it well and quickly and successfully without it feeling like my whole world has crashed down because I need to do something different now. Yeah.
It looks like we have 1 minute left.
All
So,
right, so
and
we're
we
gonna
look,
end it here.
yeah, and we're
Ooh,
only on page 28. So this is probably gonna be like 4 videos, but I think
yeah,
it's
so
good. We're having a really good discussion.
we are. Well, I appreciate everyone for starting with us in the beginning of Who Moves My Cheese. I think we've only got into like a few pages, but it's been really good and a great discussion. And I hope that you would join us for a video too. Again, this is a podcast with no name, and I am Paris.
I'm Ebony.
And until next time, guys, we will see you then.
See ya. Peace.